Hey, I'm Jay, and you're listening to Mindset Monday, a new series on the More Than podcast created to be the perfect dose of inspiration and motivation while giving you tangible tools to shift your mindset in a more positive direction. After all, your life is only as good as your mindset. I'm so glad you're here. What's up, fam? I am very excited about this week's episode because this is a topic that's been overly requested by you guys, and I've put it off for as long as I can because I've been hesitant to talk about it considering I'm not an expert in this field. But let's face it, I'm not an expert in any field. The point of this podcast is for me to just share lessons and wisdom and experiences that I've learned or just work through them in real time with you guys. Today, we are going to be talking about dating and the mindset that you should take into dating to ultimately build a healthy relationship. Now, I haven't spoken about this mainly because I have been out of the dating scene for what will be a decade, literally 10 years this February. And the people that have been in our circles and friends and anyone that I've ever really given quote unquote relationship advice to has always said that we just do things so differently. And I never really put a whole lot of thought into it. Clearly, I'm very passionate talking about other topics that I feel like make a bigger impact on people. But I turned to TikTok one afternoon thinking nothing of it. I started talking about the character traits that you see in the person that you're dating early on will only get heightened further down the road if you choose to build a future with them. That video popped off. Y'all have loved it. It has like 3 million views. Every time I share relationship advice or dating wisdom with you guys, you love it. So I decided I'm going to compile all of that and just do an episode for you guys to share some advice with you and to also give you a little bit of tough love. Now, I'm going to speak to you like I would speak to my best friend who is in these different relationship dating scenarios, because the last thing I ever want for you to do is to settle. And I'm seeing far too many people settle because you're feeling so much pressure, especially through social media, that you should be settled down, that you should have this perfect relationship. A lot of us try and go off of this standard that society has built. You need to get married by a certain age, have kids by a certain age, and you just feel so much pressure. I feel like that pressure is bullshit. Because you get this one life, and if you choose to settle in the aspect of your relationship, it's going to influence every other aspect of your relationship as well. And I don't want that for you. So I'm speaking specifically to those of you who are out on the dating scene. Maybe you are in a new relationship. You know, I feel like this really applies to everybody, because even if you are married and you do possibly feel like you are settling in your marriage, maybe I'm going to say some things that just hit home with you, or maybe give you some different like tools you can implement to have a healthier relationship. And I do want to start off by saying too that like I've been hesitant to really talk about my relationship by saying like, this is the healthy relationship, this is the way you should do it, because every relationship is so different. My husband is a very private person, and clearly I'm not. I share everything on this podcast, but I do respect a lot of the elements of our relationship by not bringing them onto here. But I will say that the relationship that you do see and what I do choose to share online is genuinely us. And I feel like we've built a really strong foundation for a healthy relationship. And it makes me really sad to see people that I love that are close to me, but also people that I'm just seeing on the internet, like normalize some craziness when it comes to what they're accepting in the dating world and relationships. If anything that I say in this episode really hits home with you, like explore that a little bit more so that you can ultimately begin building a life with somebody who enhances your life, not that you're settling for. There's a big difference between the two. I'd be remiss to go into the conversation, give you guys these tangible tools and some big advice without starting off with one hard truth. I know a handful of you are going to roll your eyes at me because I talk about this all the time, but it is so important. If you hear nothing else from me today, hear me when I say, if your self-worth is low, your standards will be too. There's no way around it. If you don't believe that you are worthy, you are deserving, you are valuable, and you're not at peace with who you are going to seek validation and approval in your relationships. Anytime you go into a relationship seeking those things, it's always a recipe for failure. That's how a lot of women get into toxic relationships, especially when we start talking about toxic partners that literally seek that out in their partners because they are controlling, or maybe they're narcissistic or whatever else. And you guys have also highly requested that I talk about narcissistic relationships on here. And I feel like I do need to bring on a dedicated expert for that. So that will be coming eventually. If you are looking for validation and approval from the person that you're dating, it's never a recipe for a healthy relationship. It's literally impossible. So as annoying as it is to say you have to work on you first before you put yourself into that dating world, you do. There's no way around it. And it's not a quick fix, and it's not glamorous, and it's not easy. And there's a lot of different ways that you could go about doing this. The only solution that I can really provide for you without actually having you in front of me is that you guys can go check out the Fundamentals of Confidence, the confidence course that I created, because I packed that baby full of science-backed research, therapy techniques that I learned over the last 7 years, and personal experiences. And I promise you, once you build up your self-worth, not only is it going to impact every other aspect of your life, but it will absolutely have an impact on your relationships and on your dating life. What you put out there is what you're going to be attracting. If you have a high sense of self-worth, if your standards are high, you're going to be attracting people that meet that. And the ones that don't, you're not going to waste your time. Time is valuable, especially when you're dating. That brings me to my next point. You need to have a really honest conversation with yourself about what you want out of dating in the phase of life that you're in. Maybe you are in this phase where you just want to casually date because you're trying to figure out what you like, what you don't like. You're in a place in your life where you're not really looking for a partner, but maybe you're in a new city, or you just want to meet people or whatever. And that's fine. There's a lot of people that casually date and they're totally fine with it. It's just important that you are aware to begin with, and that you make other people aware of that too, because that's how things end up getting really messy down the line, is when you're not clear on what you actually want. You send mixed messages, they send mixed messages. That's also how a lot of women end up getting really hurt, is because somebody will be very clear with you that they're only looking to casually date. And we have it in the back of our minds like, no, I'll change your mind. You want to go into a relationship with somebody that has a similar vision as you do for this stage in your life. I brought up a couple weeks ago in a Mindset Monday that vision brings direction. If you don't have a vision for what you want in a partner, how will you possibly know once you've found that? And then once you have found that, it's important that you both have a similar vision so that you guys are both going in a similar direction together. So in your dating life, come up with the vision that you have for this stage of your life. And now I want to pivot a little bit more to those of you who are ready to start intentionally dating, meaning you're at a place in your life that if you were to meet the right person, you are ready to build a future with them, that you're interested in actually finding somebody that you could build a relationship with, not necessarily just having fun. Those are two very, very different things. And I'm not saying that like having fun doesn't sometimes lead into a serious relationship or lead into intentional dating, because it definitely does. But it's important to be upfront with yourself from the get-go, so you at least know where you're at. We love a self-aware queen when she goes into the dating world. So let's talk intentionality in dating. Like I said, you have to have a vision for what you want, even for your dating life, so that you know when you're on the right track and when you're not. The easiest way to do this is setting up a list of non-negotiables. This non-negotiable list is entirely different and separate from your type. The non-negotiable list, it has morals, values, and characteristics that you want in a future partner. Whereas your type might be, I like tall, dark, and handsome. I like a mullet. I like tattoos. I like fill in the blank, whatever it is for you. So many of us go off of dating superficially, and don't get my words twisted or my intention twisted, that you absolutely need to be attracted to the person that you're dating. Absolutely. But if you're only going off of attraction, off of a very superficial element of whether you think they're hot or not, you most likely are going to have a superficial relationship. However, if you meet somebody that you're attracted to, but they also check off some of these non-negotiables, that's everything. That's when you at least know, okay, I met somebody who is worth entertaining the idea of what could life look like if we were to build a future together. I would argue that the most important decision that you're going to make in your life is who you choose to spend your life with. Our family relationships, we don't choose those. A lot of the times, even for our friendships, yeah, you chose them early on. Maybe you're still friends with people you were friends with growing up, or maybe it's totally different. You're in a new city, you're meeting new people, you're choosing new friends to surround yourself with. Awesome. But the person that you build a life with is an extremely intimate relationship in every sense of the word. You have to be selective with who you choose to build a life with. Because if you're not, it can lead to a lot of heartache. One of my closest friends that I was having a conversation with about topics for the Mindset Monday episode, she was encouraging me so hard, like, lean more into dating. People need to hear your perspective on this. And to give you some background just on her story too, is she was dating somebody that was exciting at the time, ultimately ended up getting married, and then went through a really nasty divorce. And we were talking last week, and I said, I feel like the most important decision that you will ever make in your life is who you choose to build a future with. She goes, absolutely. But I would add one thing on to that too. It's who you choose to have a family with. If you choose to have a family, because obviously, like, you can get a divorce if things don't work out, but when there's kids involved, it's just a whole lot messier. And a lot of that mess could have been prevented if there was this list of non-negotiables. Because if the person that you're dating does not share morals that are important to you, values that are important to you, or characteristics that are important to you, those aren't changing. It is so rare for somebody to just completely change themselves into who you want them to become. And I'll go a step further. Not only is it rare, it's fake, because you can't force somebody to change. You can't force somebody to say that something is important to them or that they have certain morals or certain values. If they're not living it out, you need to pay attention to that. I say this all the time. Actions have to match the words. Don't just listen to people's words. So if you are dating somebody and they say that they have certain morals that are really important to them, certain values that are really important to them, but they're not living it out, you have your answer. Don't invest more time or energy into them. This non-negotiables list needs to be so important to you and something that is fundamental to you that it can almost be like a guiding compass when it comes to your dating life. I'm going to give you an example of a memory that really sticks out to me when I was dating my husband very, very early on. For those of you who don't know, my husband slid in the DM almost 10 years ago. He was living in Newport, Rhode Island. I was living in Arizona at the time. I literally gave him my number and he texted me right away. We've spoken every single day since then for almost 10 years. I was initially attracted to how persistent he was, and the whole saying, if he wanted to, he would, wasn't even trending back then, but like, it was very clear that he wanted to, so he was willing to do whatever it took. My last long-term relationship prior to that was 6 years, and it was a wonderful person that we just wanted two very different things in life, and thankfully we figured that out early than later. And then I had done some casual dating in between then. And I was dating, quote unquote, this one guy I was attracted to, but to be honest, was just kind of an ass. And I don't know what it is in women, especially, that like get attracted to the bad boy thing. I did it. I don't know why I did it, but it was almost like you're seeking validation from that person. Remember, I said in the very beginning, if your self-worth is low, you are going to be seeking validation from all the wrong people. So I had talked to him and I'm like, ugh, like no, the bad boy lifestyle is very much not for me. And I had started talking to Brendan shortly after. And I was just really intrigued by the fact that he was extremely kind, that he was persistent, that he was communicative, all these things that were important to me. But I did it at the time without even realizing what I was doing. I set up this non-negotiables list of things that were really important to me to have in a future partner. When I had met Brendan, my parents had just separated and I didn't really have a adult relationship that I was looking up to, that I wanted to emulate. At this point in my life, I was very much like, I don't even know if I ever want to get married. Like, it's just not for me. And Brendan and I talked for 3 months before ever meeting each other in person. And I do think that time really set the foundation of our relationship because there wasn't that physical element there in any way. So we really got to know each other. I get that that's kind of unrealistic unless you're doing the distance thing, but it was nice to truly be able to get to know him. But back to my story, I really wanted somebody that their morals were that they were honest. Their values were family because family was so important to me. I needed somebody who loved my family the way that I did. A characteristic was that they were supportive. So Brendan flies out to surprise me, coordinates the whole thing with my little sister, picks him up at the airport. I've never met him. She's never met him. I come home from a girls' night. He's hiding in our laundry room. Like, it was a whole thing. And he ended up staying at my mom's house for 10 days so that we could see if this was actually going to be a relationship and something that we wanted to progress. I was given an opportunity to work and model for Maxim. The Super Bowl was happening in Arizona at the time. And so leading up to Super Bowl, there's all these amazing events and whatnot. And Maxim was throwing this huge party. Well, I had a modeling contract at the time. I was trying to network and really build up my career. This was a great opportunity. However, it also fell on a night that we had gotten tickets to go to a concert. We were going to see Florida Georgia Line at State Farm Stadium with my mom, my sister, me, and Brendan. And so I'm like, crap, like I don't see how that's going to end up working. I bring it up to him and I'm like, hey, just got this opportunity. It falls on the same day. And without even a hesitation, he was like, that's an amazing opportunity. You absolutely have to do it. I'm like, okay, but we have this concert and wouldn't it be weird if you went to the concert without me? And like, I feel bad. You're in town visiting. It wasn't even a thought in his mind. He was so supportive of it and also so secure in himself that he was like, no, I'll have an amazing time with your mom and your sister. My mom ended up bringing her best friend. The four of them went to this concert. They had a great night. It gave him a chance to really get to know the people that are so important in my life. And that unwavering support that he just wanted what was going to be best for me without thinking of himself was so attractive to me. That has only gotten more and more heightened over the last 10 years that we've been together. He's the most supportive and selfless man I've ever known in my life. He's unbelievably generous. His relationship that he has with my family it could literally bring me to tears, but those foundational elements were all set early on. And I recognized it because I had those non-negotiables that I wanted in a future partner. So then when I realized that he was checking those off, it like flipped something in my brain where I'm like, okay, this is somebody I actually see a future with. That's just my personal example of being able to see those non-negotiables really play out. And that's what that TikTok video was about. I was talking about just how generous and kind he was in the very beginning and how that's only gotten heightened the longer that we've been together. The flip side of that is I know so many women that there are key character traits that they're seeing in the person that they're dating that they're not a fan of, that they do not love. And they are hoping and praying that as time goes on, those will get better, they will go away. And I am here to break the bad news to you that simply does not happen. The bad qualities get heightened just like the good qualities get heightened. I'm not talking like, oh, is he a messy bachelor right now? And like, he just needs to live with a woman and learn how to clean up after himself. That's annoying, but that's not a character trait. Character trait was, does he respect you? Are his actions and words not showing that he respects you? Don't think that just because time is going to go on that suddenly he will start to respect you. A healthy relationship is built on respect. If you are not feeling that from the very beginning, run for the mother frickin' hills, because that's not something that is just going to develop. So respect is something, in my opinion, that should be part of your non-negotiable list. But I also see a lot of women date fixer-uppers. I think I've kind of tokened that term on TikTok, because a fixer-upper is something that far too many of us have done. And I think maybe, especially for women, it's like the maternal thing that we have in us, that it's like, oh, well, I can fix him, or I can fix him just enough to make him want to change. And then if X, Y, and Z changed or were fixed, then he'd be perfect. That doesn't work. Never has. It never will. I'm hearing the Taylor Swift song playing through my mind right now that she just came out with, that I think it says, I can fix him. No, really, I can. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go put that song on right now, because she literally talks about the fact that she was determined to be able to fix this guy, and at the end realizes like, oh no, I actually can't do it. You are not an exception to that rule. You can't fix anybody. And that's not to say that people don't grow and people don't change. They absolutely do. Especially in the early days of a relationship, people are going to grow, people are going to change. Ideally, you grow and you change together, right? But in the very beginning, if you're dating because you just see potential, if only you could fix them up or change them enough, it doesn't work. And even if they change temporarily, it's not going to be lasting, because it's not their idea. It's not something that they actually want for themselves. So don't waste your time. Go be a fixer-upper on like a house. Go do a DIY somewhere else, not on your partner. You are wasting your time. You will become resentful, and that is not a recipe for a healthy relationship. Not only is a fixer-upper a red flag, but I think there's so many red flags that have almost become normalized. And maybe they're normalized solely because a lot of the times when we are seeing something that doesn't totally sit well with us, but we're early on into dating somebody, we have this protective nature about us that we don't really vocalize those things. You're not going to your close circle and being like, this kind of felt weird to me. Is this something I should ignore? Is this something that I should bring up in a conversation? Like what? Instead, we internalize that stuff. Over time, when you are ignoring your intuition and ignoring those little nudges that you're getting of the red flags in the person that you're dating, you're just going to start lowering your standards little by little, until all of a sudden you don't even see the red flags anymore, because you've chosen to just ignore them for so long that that's just your new normal. Don't be that girl. Please, don't be that girl. If you are feeling something in your gut that is not right, or you see a red flag from the beginning, if you aren't comfortable vocalizing it to somebody else, like at least write it down so that you can then look at it and be like, okay, is this something that I'm okay with if it never changes, or is this something I should pay attention to? So important to do, especially early on in a relationship. And I get why so many people don't do that, because when you're early on to dating somebody, you're in the honeymoon phase. Everyone's on their best behavior. You're doing whatever you can to see if there's potential there, but you're also showing up as like the most polished version of yourself, just like they are. And when that starts to wear off a little bit, it's where you guys actually start acting like yourselves and showing your true colors. And given honeymoon phases will wear off and come back at different stages of your relationships. But when you're in that honeymoon phase, you have these like love goggles and blinders on that you don't see things that are very clear from the outside that are a red flag. So this brings me to a very, very, very important point. If you bring the person that you are dating or in a relationship with around the people that love you, that have been in your life for a long time, that want the best for you, and they bring something to your attention that is maybe a red flag or isn't totally sitting right with them, listen. They are seeing something that you don't. Now, I'm not saying go listen to everybody and their mom that doesn't truly know you or doesn't truly know the person that you're dating, but the people close to you, if they are bringing stuff to your attention and you're choosing not to listen, it becomes really difficult to sit back and watch it all unfold and watch you get hurt. I have somebody close in my life that it literally, I used to say this analogy to her all the time. It's like a train that's about to derail and I know it's going to happen and I know it's going to crash, but you literally won't listen to the warning signs. So as somebody that loves you, I have to sit back and watch it happen and then pick up the pieces. And you never want to be that person that's like, I told you so. But a lot of the times, once you get to that stage, because inevitably, if they're seeing something, most likely there's validity there. And you can look back and be like, why didn't I listen? Why didn't I see that? Don't be that girl. You don't have to be. Just pay attention in the beginning and bring them around the people that are really important to you. Get the feedback of the people that are really important to you. Nobody is perfect. I think we've all been sold this lie, especially women, that somebody is going to come in, swoop you off your feet as Prince Charming. They're going to complete you and everything is just going to be perfect. And I'm sorry to burst your bubble. It doesn't exist. Even wonderful, incredible people and partners are not perfect. And nobody else is capable of completing you. They're just not. It's not realistic at all. You have to be at peace with yourself. And then a healthy relationship enhances you, doesn't complete. I learned this lesson the hard way because I've talked about my little midlife 20s crisis on here where I was really, really struggling with my mental health. Everything from the outside looking in was going perfectly. I had achieved my lifelong dream of becoming a successful full-time working model. I was living in a beautiful high-rise in New York City. I had a wonderful, healthy relationship and great boyfriend. I had the cutest puppy ever. I had great friends, yet I was really struggling with my mental health. I was having panic attacks constantly. I was so beyond anxious, and I got myself into therapy. And I remember in one of our conversations where I was looking to other people to like complete me, to fix whatever was broken. And when we started even talking about relationship stuff, because Brendan was very supportive of me going through therapy the entire time, and he just wasn't there. He wasn't in that same place, that he wasn't struggling with those things. So it's difficult to support somebody in that position where you don't really know exactly how to support them. And I remember just venting one day to my therapist. Maybe if he was in therapy, he could help me understand what was wrong. And she stopped me and first introduced me to the concept that like, it is not his job to make you happy. It is not his job to complete you. It is not his job to fix what is broken within you. That is your job. And you are the only one capable of doing that. And it was so eye-opening for me because I realized, yeah, not only have I looked to him to then just be my source of happiness, but I think we all do that even outside of relationships and outside of dating. We look to our career to make us happy. We look to our friendships to make us happy, our partners to make us happy. And then when they don't, we don't have the self-awareness to be like, okay, this is a me issue. Instead, we just deflect and point the finger at somebody else. So if you are also one of those people that has just been sold the lie from society that your partner is meant to complete you, it is not true. Goes back to the very beginning that you have to do the internal work on yourself. You have to have a high sense of self-worth. You need to take accountability of yourself, and you need to understand if there are deep wounds within you that need to be addressed, if there's parts that feel broken that need to be fixed, if there's some self-discovery and self-improvement that needs to happen there, only you are capable of doing that. Don't put that on another person. And also don't accept it from your partner. If they are deflecting and putting all their problems on you and that's why they're unhappy, That's toxic too, because they clearly don't have self-awareness. So I know that's a whole other tangent rant right there, but you are responsible for your own happiness. I think once you understand that, it's a lot easier to come into a relationship with two imperfect people that are doing their best to work towards a common goal. Now, I feel like I could do an entirely separate episode on the mindset that you take into becoming engaged or marriage even. Obviously, I'm no expert. I'm a year and a half into marriage. But this is something, we're constantly growing and evolving and learning and trying to be the healthiest and best couple that we can be. But I'm more comfortable in being able to spot and give advice to the dating scene because of all the things that have just become so normalized. So one other thing I have to bring to your attention is this idea that your partner has the right to have control over you. I'm seeing this play out in so many ways where girls will be on a girls' night and yet their partner is blowing up their phone asking what they're doing and who they're with. If they are dictating in any way what you're wearing, who you're talking to, who you're seeing, if trust is not an element or a foundation of your relationship, that is such a huge red flag, and it is going to get heightened over time. There's such a huge difference between being protected and being protective. Being protective has a very fine line that gets crossed oftentimes with control. Whereas being protected is a person that loves you, that wants what is best for you and has your back. That's what is healthy in a relationship. The protective, controlling stuff, nah. Leads me to my last and final point. When you were early on into dating somebody, stop ignoring your emotions, your feelings, minimizing things because you want to be the quote unquote cool girl. I get it. When you are in a new relationship with somebody, you don't want to come across as controlling or crazy, quote unquote, as guys love to throw out. You don't want to come across as that girl. So instead, when something does happen that bothers you or that gets under your skin or it upsets you or it hurts your feelings, you just don't bring it up. And that is setting a foundation of you ignoring yourself and ultimately of them ignoring you. So that when you are in a relationship with them and you do start bringing to their stuff to their attention, then all of a sudden it's like, never heard any of this stuff before and you were so different in the beginning and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, that's because you were ignoring your own emotions and your own feelings. A healthy relationship should allow you to be able to bring stuff to their attention that has hurt your feelings, that has upset you, have open lines of communication, and them to be able to hear you out and to respect you enough to hear when you've been upset and to want to fix it. So while you're trying to go and just play cool girl that nothing phases you, that's going to catch up and bite you in the ass later down the line. A perfect example of this, I was just having a conversation with a young woman that is bothered because the guy that she's dating is following a whole bunch of Instagram models, liking all their pictures, and understandably so, she doesn't love that. I don't know many girls that would love that, but doesn't want to bring anything to his attention because she doesn't want to seem controlling. Girl, he knows better. And if you guys are in a relationship and he's doing that, that's not okay. You need to set your standards and you got to stick to your standards. So if you bring up to him like, hey, that makes me really uncomfortable when you do that. And ultimately it makes me almost question like what you're looking for, what you're doing, and it makes me not really trust you. And I don't love it. So if we're going to continue, I'd prefer that you didn't do that. Okay, see how he handles it. If he starts to gaslight you or belittle you or call you controlling or crazy, that is telling you everything that you need to know right then and there. You got to communicate about stuff. Men's brains and women's brains are very different. Women overthink everything. It's one of our specialties. Men, there's really not a lot going on up there. They're able to think about one thing at a time. And I know I'm generalizing it, but I can speak from experience that if I'm sitting here right now, even as I'm recording, I have like 80,000 thoughts flying through my head right now. Whereas if my husband was sitting here and he's recording, he'd be like, I have one thing on my mind, and that is what I'm doing. And then I will move on to the next thing. Like, men's brains and women's brains just work differently. Women, especially when you're dating, and this applies to all throughout the relationship too. I'm guilty of it. I still do this. So I'm giving myself this advice too. We come up with scenarios and circumstances and thought processes that must be going through their minds without ever actually bringing something up to them for them to validate whether that's correct or not. And we come up with these whole scenarios. We get ourselves all worked up. We make assumptions, and you know what they say, assumptions. It makes an ass out of you and out of them. So instead of doing that, just assume that they are unaware, because dropping little hints, giving them the cold shoulder, talking crap about them behind their back to all your friends and family, and trying to get their attention to realize that they've done something to upset you, most likely, they're never going to be intuitive to figure out that you're actually upset. So save yourself a whole lot of trouble. Bring it up to them. Instead of like doing the whole thing in your own head, say, hey, this upset me. This is how I perceive the situation. Is this what you intended? And once you bring it to their attention, then they have the opportunity to tell you what they're actually thinking. And that's how you guys can grow together. That's how you guys can solve problems before they ever really become a problem. Like, communication is such a key element that the advice of like holding things in, or like just go talk to your posse about it before ever actually talking to that person, it will always bite you in the butt. And that applies to a lot of relationships, but especially when it comes to dating. So that's a free little snippet for you right there for all my ladies that are hearing. And also for guys, like, give women the benefit of the doubt. We got a lot going on in our minds at all times. So just do your best to not add any additional stress to our thought process, will you? That would be wildly helpful. So before I tie this up with a nice little bow, I just want to drive home the fact that if you are trying to be intentional with dating, you set up a non-negotiables list and you stick to it. Remember, the non-negotiables list is different from just your type, because your type is going to lead to just superficial relationships. And ideally, the two of those blend together and make a great partner for you. But I can also say that I have watched within the last 2 weeks this play out. A girlfriend created a non-negotiables list. This guy reached out to her. They started talking. Wasn't necessarily her type from the get-go. And the more they started talking, the more interested she got. She agreed to go on a date with him. That date lasted for 6 hours of them just talking, and the attraction level went through the roof because he checked off so many of these non-negotiables and is actually somebody that she could see having a healthy, great, amazing relationship with. And she almost didn't give him the time of day solely because she would have gone off of her type. So let that sink in. Don't just go off your type. Also create this non-negotiables. If you are seeing red flags, listen to your intuition. Stop ignoring yourself. It will serve you in every aspect of your life, but especially when it comes to the dating world. And last but not least, I'm going back to the exact point that I started with. What you put out there is also what you are attracting. So if you are constantly finding yourself in toxic relationships, attracting toxic partners, it's a pretty clear indication that you need to do some of the work on yourself. Once you do that self-worth work and that increases, your standards will also increase. And one of two things will happen. You will start attracting people that meet those standards, or some of the people that you were attracting previously will come back into the picture, and you can easily be like, the bar is here and you do not at all meet it. You don't even waste your time. Your energy, it'll save you future heartache, just makes things so much easier. So work on yourself. If you don't know where to start, go check out the Fundamentals of Confidence. I got you. I promise it will transform every aspect of your life, but especially when it comes to your dating life. Now, if this episode made an impact on you, send it to somebody who needs to hear it or share it on social media. I absolutely love chatting with you guys. Make sure you are following The More Than Show on both Apple and Spotify. And if you haven't already, please leave us a rating. Please leave us a rating and a review. It helps us grow and continue bringing you amazing free content. I love you guys. I hope that these little nuggets of information can help to switch up your mindset when it comes to dating and is some good food for thought for you to carry into this week. I will see you on Thursday with a brand new amazing guest episode and next Monday for another Mindset Monday.